I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Homeschool Counseling Network vlog. Today I have with me a guest speaker, Jody Daniels. Jody is the founder of Learning Lighthouse, the original co-op homeschool micro school. She has also graduated 5 children of her own, and we don't even know how many that you have graduated from the years that you have spent homeschooling. But we are grateful to have you here with us today. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be asked.
Can you tell us a little bit? Listeners love stories. And so if you're watching, if you're listening right now, I'd like for you to get to know Jody just a little bit about her homeschool journey and her background in homeschooling.
Okay, well, I actually decided to homeschool when my kids were toddler and infant because there was a family we knew and I saw their kids, which were 13, 10, and 8, and they just were so comfortable with themselves. They could talk to adults, they could talk to their peers, and they could help with the little kids. And I just saw them and said, you know what, I'm going to homeschool. And then several years later, we ended up being way out in the country when we started homeschooling. I had a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and we just did kindergarten together. And I started with a Montessori book that I found somewhere. It was probably at a thrift shop, knowing me, and we just did a lot of hands-on.
I love it.
Yeah, and we were outside a lot, and then we moved. So then they went to a little one-room schoolhouse for 1 year until we moved again. And that was a temporary move. So we just did that. And so that was kind of the one-room schoolhouse idea that was a K through 3rd classroom. And then after we moved, they did go to a part-time school which was at our church, but I was there too. But that got to be too much because I thought, I'm not even teaching these kids to like clean up after themselves and, just like basics. So we decided we're just going to be at home. And that was where I was truly, at home. I was the only teacher. I had to learn all the things and big learning curve when you first start. And
yes, of course.
Then because I had my kids so close together, I realized I can't teach 3 full grade levels in one day. Like it would take like 18 hours if I followed,
Right.
The book. And so I figured out, I could combine some of the subjects. So that helped a lot. So then I remembered when I was in 2nd grade, I was in a multi-level classroom and I started remembering some of that and implementing that. And so I did that with my kids. And then, I still do that now with other people's kids. In between, I guess I should say, since we weren't part of a school or anything, and this is before a lot of the schools that are out now, existed. Right. We did a weekly park day. We did craft days. We did Valentine exchange. We just got together with local people using Yahoo groups. That's how long ago it was. And we just made our own stuff. We just, did everything ourselves. Then, when they get older, and we've talked about this, when you need help with math, we did look for classes again. So yeah, I've done a little bit of everything.
You have, I know. And we have, for our personal experience with Miss Jody, as we still call her in our house, we found you, it was post-pandemic. We were in a little bit of a homeschool unofficial co-op pre-pandemic, and then the world shut down. And our co-op sort of disbanded, and actually everyone moved. They literally moved really far away. So I was looking we just have one. So I was looking for somewhere to help my very extroverted child not be as lonely. And that is when I came across at the time what Miss Jody's micro school was Lift, Learning is Fun Together.
Yeah.
And we went there just, our son went there for just enrichment, but he loved it. It was his absolute favorite day of the week. He looked forward to going to Miss Jody's. And so that is how we came in contact with Miss Jody and how I've known her over the years. But what I love is that you shared there is that you just made it your own. You had the freedom and you trusted 2 things. You made it your own and with the freedom that you had, and you also trusted your instincts. You were like, you know what, this is a way to do this, which now I believe what you were describing is probably what they call family subjects. Is that how they call that now, basically?
Maybe. I haven't heard that term.
Maybe. Well, there's a lot of them that do that. They teach that way. They pick a subject and then you can modify it for each different grade levels. I just have one, so we are a family of one.
Yeah.
But that is an amazing journey. So you've homeschooled not only and graduated your own 5 children, but you've homeschooled so many different children over the years and been there for so many different families. Now, you started from the beginning, but there as a homeschool family, but there are a lot of families, especially in recent years after post-pandemic, homeschooling has completely exploded. And you and I were talking sort of off camera earlier, and as Facebook friends, we were talking about how families who come from either a public school or a private school into a homeschool setting instead, they decide to make that transition. It requires a huge mindset shift.
Correct.
So that you are not trying to just recreate school at home. So what is some advice that you have then from your experience over the years that parents can take for helping sort of make that mindset shift?
So it is a big learning curve. And one of the mindsets that I see a lot is when we've gone to public school ourselves and our kids have been in public school, we're used to just taking them somewhere, not necessarily having the full responsibility to make decisions about things like curriculum and lesson plans and gathering the supplies and then implementing the lesson and then understanding how your child's learning style works or how to, different ways to implement a lesson. All of that is going to be brand new unless you were already a teacher. So the mindset that I think the transition, I mean, it's probably a process over a couple of years, 2 to 3 years even, to really get used to that whole new mindset and really lifestyle. And but the mindset that, okay, I'm not just dropping my kid off. I get to choose what's best for them. And sometimes what's best for them is you do find a place to drop them off. There's nothing wrong with that. But just, it's the having something handed to you versus you starting it. So like if you cook the meal from scratch versus going to the restaurant. So having the mindset that because I'm making this education recipe, I get to choose all the ingredients. So,
no, I love that. I love that perspective because it goes from shifting from the thought of fear, oh no, what am I going to do, to the thought of, oh, yeah, what am I going to do? It's a lens, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, and one of the one of the hardest things that parents seem to run into at this point is because so many people did switch to outside the public school system is how do I choose and what do I do? There's too many options. And so I have some tips for keeping it simple. I don't know if that's a good time to bring that up.
This is a perfect time to bring that up because that is the number one question. I don't know about you, but it's the number one question that I've seen. It's that immediate panic. Okay, I've pulled my kid out of school. What is the best? And it has exploded. It has exploded. Everybody's offering you a curriculum. Everybody's offering you something now. And I'll be the first to admit, I've never gone to a homeschool convention. Not once. Just for the fear of the overwhelm or no, I don't want to get distracted. I need horse blinders on if I go to a homeschool convention. But yes, parents need this. So please share your tips and your insight and your hard-earned wisdom.
Yeah. So the main thing is keeping it simple. I mean, you don't have to do everything and you don't even necessarily have to buy or pay for things for everything. So I suggest when people first start, a lot of people suggest that unschooling. I mean, not everybody knows what that is. So that's what that is. But basically, it's just allowing your child to decompress because a lot of times they've been in a pressure situation and you're taking them out. So giving them time to decompress, that means you can keep the educational environment. You can keep doing educational things, but you're not necessarily getting out the math books and and getting out the history books. So you could be going to field trips, you could go to the library, let them follow their interests, give them a few months of that even. Some people do that for a whole school year, just depends on you and your child. And then I suggest just focus the 3 R's. Don't try and do everything. Don't try and do every subject. The school system has a whole plan, for 12 years. You don't have to do it exactly the way they're doing it on at the same year. They just have divided subjects up. So when you're doing math, that has to build on itself. When you're doing language arts, it has to build on itself. Focus on those. You expect that you might try some things that don't work while you're trying to find something that works. So it's okay to try something. If it's working, stick with it. If it's not, then, you can switch. And that's especially true. I think math is probably one of the major, we are talking about. Yeah. There is some curriculums that you just don't find useful. That's okay. Yes. It's okay to look for another one. But once you find one that works, I really suggest sticking with it because there's so many choices thrown at us. And it's always, this one's going to solve your problem, or this one's going to make sure they get in college. It's always offering a solution, but that's also marketing. So sometimes psychologically we can get caught up in the marketing, and it's also, especially with social media now, there's more marketing than ever, whether you go to the convention or not. Right. So, the homeschool conventions are actually a good option for some people because they want to see everything that's available. But if you're not that kind of person, then I think it's helpful to look around maybe in personal groups like homeschool groups where you can ask people and then find out why do they like that curriculum? Do they have the same type of, situation or kid that you have? Because something I love might not be a good fit for the other person. It also matters what you are. Like I'm not going to use a certain type of curriculum because it wouldn't work for me, even if it worked for my kids. So you have to find ones that work for both of you, or you can get somebody else for certain things. You don't have to do it all. So as we know, one of the I want to make sure. Yeah. So one of the biggest gifts of homeschooling is that your child can learn to think and they can learn to be independent sooner. And one of the things that they see a lot in college is the freshmen, they take about 1.5 years to get used to being there, but it's partly because they've never had to make their own decisions and plan their own study times and those kind of things. Where with homeschooling, you're able to give your kids some of those things throughout middle and high school. They're ready when they get there, whether they go to college or a job, they're ready. So think kind of outside the box of, it's not just repeating what the public school does. It's making it your own for your individual child and their goals. Yeah.
Yes, it's me. And, in counseling, we have the phrase, meet the client where they are. This is meet your child where they are. Yes. And that's the most beautiful thing of it is the freedom of it. You can either take that and view that as being overwhelming, or you can take that and view that as being a gift. Yeah. So, and you can eat the elephant one little bite at a time. You're not on that time frame or that timeline, because initially that was me. I think everyone probably starts off that way a little bit. Oh, I must do it all, and I must do it all perfect, and I must finish the book, and we must do every little thing. Luckily, that didn't last very long for me. I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. Yeah. And I, like you've said, I fell in love with a curriculum at first. I loved The Well-Trained Mind. I still love The Story of the World History because Jim Wise could read me stereo instructions and I'd probably listen to it and enjoy it because I love his voice. But doing a lot of the language arts and the grammar, I had to let that go, even though I enjoyed it because it followed in line with history. I have a child with dysgraphia. It was not working. It was not working. And I fought too hard to make it work until I finally realized, oh, I need to quit trying to modify and accommodate and just throw it out and move on to something different. And it made it so much easier. It so much easier. Work smarter, not harder, because you can.
Yeah. Because we have all the options now, you don't have to make something work. I mean, if it's not. That's true. And your child may need something totally different than what your comfort zone is. And that's where,
Mhm.
kind of what you're talking about is sometimes we have to kind of give up our little dream of having that curriculum work
Mhm.
perfectly, but then you find out it's okay. You're happier.
Mhm. Which is the point, because really, you talked about the 3 R's that you're covering. I also would throw one more R in there, which is the main reason we homeschool, and that's relationship. I'm
Yes.
always saying have connection over curriculum
Yes.
first. That's
Yes.
the beauty of it. You get to spend more time with your child. You get to have that connection with them, because at least for our family, definitely that is what it's about. That's the most important thing.
100% agree. Yeah. Yeah. We still have a relationship with our kids, and they're adults now, and we still have a relationship
Yes.
with them. And I know a lot of that is because we spent so much time together, and the siblings are all really close because they grew up
Hmm.
together. They weren't in separate classrooms and kind of only home on the evenings and weekends and holidays.
Hmm.
So that is a huge benefit of homeschooling is you still have family connection time. And one of the priorities that we had was that the kids had time to do sports or social events or even a part-time job if they wanted to without being overwhelmed. And when you look
Yeah.
at kids in public school, if they try to add anything, their lives get so intense, and only some kids can't
Hmm.
do that. Some people are
Hmm.
not cut out to be active, that many hours and pressure that many hours. Some people do really well in that situation, but it's okay that we aren't all like that, you know.
Yes.
And my kids, I remember thinking, should I be making them get up at 6 every morning? Because I know people that did that. They had their kids
Hmm.
get up at 6 or 7 or whatever every morning, and they had a schedule. But I'm not really that kind of person, so that would have been rough on me more than them.
Right.
But we decided, you know what? As long as they're being responsible about other things, I'm not going to stress out over that. And I'm so amazed that they all still get up and go to work on time no matter what. It didn't matter that I didn't do that, when they were a kid, because they didn't need to when they were kids. They need to now that they're adults. And that's another benefit of homeschooling is you can let them be children while they're children. So they're
Yeah.
developmentally, moving through the stages at the appropriate time instead of trying to create, well, if I make them act
Hmm.
like an adult now, that'll make them a better adult. But it doesn't. Being a kid
Mm-mm.
actually at the appropriate time allows them
Yes.
to grow into being an adult at the appropriate time, which is kind of, backwards from what some people have, promoted. And I was really happy that I didn't listen to that.
No, I agree. Within reason, I like to let our son wake up naturally.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's having a growth spurt, he's going to sleep a little longer. If we've
Yeah.
got somewhere to be, I'm like, okay, it's 9 o'clock. We kind of need to get
Yeah.
going. But that is the beauty of it. Childhood is such a brief
Yeah.
period of time when you compare it across the lifespan. And once it's gone, you don't get it back.
Yes.
You don't
Well,
get
and
it
as
back.
a counselor, you probably know even more the benefits of children being
Hmm.
children at the,
Yes.
developmental stage they're in, and it fully embracing the developmental stage while they're in it.
Yes. Yes, that also builds into that relationship, not just between you and your child, but for that child intrinsically within themselves.
Yeah.
It helps build that confidence, it builds that self-esteem, and because then you end up with more mature adults at
Yes.
the appropriate time, as opposed to really immature adults that didn't get through that
Yeah.
developmental stage resolved in a healthy manner. I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a bigger payoff for it, and that is definitely a benefit that we see with homeschooling as well. Even when we have to get up, we're hybrid homeschoolers, so even on the
Yes.
2 days that we get up and he goes to class, he's like,
Yeah.
"When I get up, but I'm up because it's only 2 days a week, Mom. Here we go."
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"Thank you, dude."
When it's only 2 or 3 days a week, they're good. They can
Yeah,
handle that. It's not like a full-time job, when you're 10.
exactly, exactly. Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on and giving us these tips, because I would say this is definitely some of the biggest questions that I see out on social media, especially for beginner homeschoolers.
Yes.
Either if you're starting from the beginning, because some of them are like, I'm pregnant now and I want to think about it now. I'm like, oh, okay, you just
Yeah.
worry about getting some sleep now, and
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're about to not have any for a little bit. Eat this elephant one bite
Yeah.
at a time. Or, like you said, I'm transitioning from public school or a private school into homeschooling now, and usually that comes about because they've had some type of trauma is such a strong word, but I'm going to say negative
Yeah.
event. Sometimes it is trauma. Sometimes
Yes.
it really legitimately is trauma. But yes, you need that time to. I'm a big advocate for deschooling to help you make that mindset shift, because then it helps you relax, and it
Yes.
helps your child relax, and it helps help your kind of retrain your brain. We call it building
Yeah.
new neural network pathways. It's like laying train track.
Yes.
You're retraining your brain that not everything has to be a trigger for you to react and for your body to go into that fight and flight
Yeah.
state, that you can learn how to just decompress. You can learn how to relax, reclaim childhood,
Yes.
reclaim family relationships, and build that relationship with your child. You're not on that forced timeline that you think you are. You're on your timeline now.
Yeah. And a relaxed person can learn, but a stressed out
Yes,
person isn't receiving new information. So
they're
being
not.
able to relax in your school setting, your child is going to be open to learning. And actually, when you're having fun, you're learning more than when you're stressed out. So, I mean, it's a
Absolutely.
win-win.
It's a total win-win. Well, Jody, thank you so much for coming on with us today, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thank you for having me.